On my mom's birthday, she looked me dead in the eye, smiled in front of everyone, and said, "The best gift you could give me is to disappear from my life." For a moment, I thought she was joking. But then, the entire table laughed, my cousin smirking, my aunt whispering, and my brother shaking his head like he'd always expected me to fail. My hands went cold. I had shown up with a cake I baked myself, thinking it might finally earn me a smile from her. Instead, she gave me a gift I'd never forget: humiliation. Before I continue, hit that share button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because what happened next shocked every single person who once looked down on me. I forced a smile, pretending her words didn't pierce through me, but my mind was racing. Disappear? Fine. If that's what she wanted, she'd get it, but not the way she imagined. The moment I walked out of that house, I made a silent promise: I'd vanish so completely from their lives that when they saw me again, they wouldn't even recognize the person I'd become. The night air felt heavier as I left. No one stopped me. Not even my brother, who used to be my closest friend, looked my way. I was invisible to them, but what they didn't know was, invisibility was about to become my greatest weapon. In the dark, my phone buzzed with a text from my mom: "Don't come back until you've grown up." I laughed. She thought she had the last word, but she had no idea I was about to rewrite the whole story, and that's when I made the first call, the one that would change everything. The person I called was Ethan, my old college friend, the only one who'd ever believed in me. Back in school, I had this crazy idea for an online design business, but my family called it a waste of time and told me to get a real job. Ethan, on the other hand, had always said, "Natalie, you don't need their approval, you just need a plan." That night, I told him everything. He didn't hesitate. "Pack your bags and come stay with me," he said. "We'll make your idea work." By the next morning, I was on a bus to his city. No explanations. Just me, a small backpack, and the determination to make every single insult they ever threw at me turn into fuel. Ethan lived in a tiny apartment above a noisy cafe. It wasn't much, but to me, it was freedom. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe without someone watching me fail. We spent nights at his kitchen table sketching designs, building a website, and contacting small businesses that needed branding. I didn't sleep much those first few months, but every order that came in felt like another brick in the wall between me and my old life. Within a year, the business had grown so fast that we had to rent an office. I was working with clients overseas, hiring staff, and earning more in a month than my mom made in a year. Still, I kept quiet. I didn't post about it, didn't call home, didn't let anyone know where I was. Silence was my armor, but silence doesn't last forever. 2 years later, I got a message from my cousin, Laura, the one who used to call me the family disappointment. She wrote, "Hey, I heard you're doing okay now. We're having a big family dinner next month for Mom's retirement. You should come." At first, I was going to ignore it. Then I thought about my mom's birthday, the laughter, the way they all looked at me like I was nothing. That's when I decided I wouldn't just show up. I'd make an entrance they'd never forget. So, I called Ethan again. "I need your help," I said. "It's time to go home." What I had planned wasn't just a reunion. It was going to be the moment every cruel word they ever said to me would come back to hit them harder than they ever expected. I arrived at my hometown the day before the dinner, but I didn't tell anyone. Instead, I checked into the most expensive hotel in the city, the kind of place my family wouldn't even dare to step inside without feeling out of place. The staff greeted me by name, carried my designer luggage, and handed me a room key with a private elevator pass. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the skyline, and thought, 2 years ago, they told me to disappear. Now I'm back, and they won't be able to look away. The next morning, I visited a boutique where I had an appointment with a stylist. A sleek black dress, diamond earrings, and heels that whispered confidence with every step. This wasn't just an outfit, it was armor. I also carried something else, a thin, leather-bound folder. What was inside would be the final blow. That evening, as I walked into the restaurant they'd rented for the dinner, conversation stopped. Forks clinked against plates. My mother's eyes widened for half a second before she masked it with her usual cold stare. My brother muttered something under his breath. And Laura, the cousin who invited me, looked me up and down like she was trying to figure out if I was real. "Oh," my mom said finally, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "I didn't think you'd actually come. I assumed you'd be busy with your hobbies." The table chuckled, just like they had on her birthday years ago. I smiled. "Well, I thought I'd make time. After all, it's not every day we celebrate Mom's retirement. Must be nice to finally relax." She raised an eyebrow. "It is. Although, not everyone can afford to retire, can they?" Another round of quiet laughter rippled through the table. They still thought I was the same Natalie who left with nothing, but that's when I decided it was time to start planting the seeds of curiosity. I casually mentioned my team when talking about work, dropped hints about clients overseas, and let my diamond bracelet catch the light every time I lifted my glass. With each passing minute, their smirks faded just a little. Then my brother leaned forward, trying to sound casual. "So, what exactly have you been doing all this time?" I looked at him, then at my mom, then at the leather folder sitting by my side. "Funny you should ask," I said, my voice calm but laced with something they couldn't quite place. "Because what I've been doing is the reason all of you are about to have the most shocking dinner of your lives." And with that, I reached for the folder. I placed the leather folder on the table slowly, letting the tension build. Every eye was on me now. My mother tried to act uninterested, but I could see the way her hand tightened around her wine glass. I flipped the cover open just enough for them to see the edge of a stack of official documents. "These," I said, my voice steady, "are the ownership papers for the building you're sitting in right now." For a second, no one reacted. Then my aunt laughed nervously. "What are you talking about? This place belongs to Mr. Davenport. We've been coming here for years." I shook my head. "Not anymore. I bought it 6 months ago." My mom's fork froze halfway to her mouth. My brother's smirk disappeared. And Laura, the cousin who always reminded me I couldn't even afford rent, was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. "You bought a restaurant," my brother scoffed, trying to find his confidence again. "No," I corrected, sliding another paper out from the folder. "I bought this restaurant, plus the building next to it, and the cafe where we used to meet after church. Actually," I leaned in slightly, "you know that little shop where Mom gets her hair done every month? Yeah. I own that too." A stunned silence spread across the table. I let it sit there for a moment before continuing. "When you told me to disappear, Mom, I did. But while you all were laughing at me, I was building something. I started with nothing. Ethan and I worked day and night, no help, no safety net. And now? I own 3 businesses, employ over 50 people, and I make in a month what I used to dream of making in a year." My mom's lips pressed into a thin line. "Well, money isn't everything," she muttered, but I could see the flicker of panic in her eyes. "True," I said, smiling. "It's not everything. But it does buy freedom. The freedom to walk away from people who think you're worthless, and never look back." The table was dead silent. Even the background chatter of other diners seemed to fade. And just when I thought the moment couldn't get more satisfying, a voice from behind me said, "Excuse me, Miss Carter, your driver is ready whenever you are." I turned to see the restaurant manager standing respectfully, holding my coat. My family's eyes followed him, then flicked back to me, and that's when I decided to drop one more twist, one that would make this dinner unforgettable. I stood, letting my chair scrape softly against the floor, the sound cutting through the silence like a blade. Slowly, I slid the remaining paper from the folder and placed it in front of my mother. Her eyes darted over the bold letters at the top, and I saw her jaw tighten. "What's this?" she asked, her voice strained. "It's the deed to the Carter family house," I said, my gaze fixed on her. "The one you always said I'd never have a claim to. The one you promised would go to my brother." Her head snapped toward him, but he looked just as shocked. "That's not possible. Dad owns," I cut him off with a smirk. "Correction. Owned. Dad sold it to a private buyer a few months ago, me. The same week you sent me that text telling me to grow up and get a real life." The color drained from my mom's face, and for once, she had no quick insult, no sharp comeback. The entire table sat frozen, forks hovering midair, wine glasses untouched. I let the weight of the moment sink in before I spoke again. "I'm not here to gloat," I lied smoothly. "I'm here to tell you that the girl you humiliated on your birthday doesn't exist anymore. You told me to disappear, and I did. But when I came back, I made sure I'd never be at your mercy again." I picked up the deed, tucked it neatly back into the folder, and slipped on my coat. You can keep the cake I brought tonight, I added with a faint smile. It's probably the last thing you'll ever get from me for free. Without waiting for a response, I walked toward the door. The restaurant manager held it open, and as I stepped outside, the cool night air hit my face like a victory I'd been chasing for years. Behind me, I could almost feel their eyes burning into my back, confused, stunned, and maybe, just maybe, a little afraid. The sleek black car waiting at the curb wasn't just a ride, it was a statement. As the driver opened the door, I glanced over my shoulder one last time. Through the restaurant window, I saw my mother still holding the empty space where the deed had been, her knuckles white. My brother was saying something to her, but she didn't respond. I slid into the leather seat, the city lights reflecting off the tinted windows. Ethan, sitting beside me, grinned. So, he said, feel better? I laughed softly, a sound I hadn't heard from myself in years. Better? No. This was closure. As the car pulled away, I thought about the years of doubt, the nights of silent work, the sting of every insult they ever threw at me, and how every single one had led me here. They had wanted me gone. And now, they finally understood. I didn't just disappear. I outgrew them.